Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of our financial aid series, where we talk about ways to make college more affordable and easier on your wallet. Now, we'll talk about things like financial aid, scholarships, loans, tax credits, and so much more so that your kids can go through great colleges without suffering from financial stress. So, if paying for college is in your future, stay tuned right here for money saving tips you won't get from Google, from high school counselors, and certainly not from colleges themselves. In case we haven't met, my name is Roman Polnar. I'm a financial aid expert, and I'm your host for these financial aid series. And today, I want to talk about the number one most important thing to make your kids' entire college experience affordable for the whole family. Because despite the 400 and more things that you'll need to do to prepare your kids for college, the number one thing that determines how much you're going to pay for it out of your own pocket starts with this one thing. And we're going to talk about that in this episode because that one thing is applying to really good fit colleges, which means finding colleges that will actually give you the biggest discount. So you can pay less than the sticker price, avoid debt, which is plaguing our young people as well as your or their parents. And the reason that is happening is just because the price of colleges have gotten to be outrageously high. An in-state public four-year college now costs upwards of $30,000 a year. That's including, tuition, room and board, books, supplies, and all the fees. Now, if you're looking for an out-of-state school, that jumps to about $45,000 on average. Private colleges go from 50 upwards of now above $80,000 per year. So, when you're looking at the four-year cost of school, they're reasonably now between, or unreasonably so, I should say, but you can reasonably expect, I should say, to pay between $100,000 upwards of $300,000 per student. So, look, if you've got more than one college-bound child, some families might be on the hook for 600 or even upwards of $1 million. And that's a huge, huge commitment to make for any single family, especially when you consider the price of college that's been going up like nothing else in our daily lives. The cost of college over the last 20 years has been the fastest growing cost that families have above everything else. Over the last 20 years, colleges have grown to be over 170% over where they were just 20 years ago. And the big problem with that is our incomes have not gone up nearly at the same rate. On average, if you've been paying attention, everything around us is getting incredibly expensive right now. Right? Inflation is surging upwards of 8 to 8.5%, where our government is targeting about 2 to 2.5% average inflation. Well, guess what? That 2.5% average inflation that we've all experienced and lived with for the last 20 to 30 years, that's roughly how fast average incomes increase. But this 8+% crazy inflation that we're all feeling right now is exactly what colleges have been going up at for the last 20 years. Exactly 8.5% per year. So the thing that you're experiencing when going to the gas pump or going to the grocery store is the exact thing that colleges have been doing with their prices for the last 20 years. That's why there's this huge gap now between the amount of money that families can afford to pay for college and the amount that colleges actually cost. And it leaves that big gap for families to make up on their own out of their pocket, which is huge. And it's also the reason why student loan debt has just gone through the roof. Like, you can see that the parallel between the cost of college and average income is the same as the amount of debt that our families, your kids, and you as parents have been taking on. Our total student debt now is over 1.75 trillion. It's actually, at this point, as of today, probably surpassed 1.8 trillion. Now, I know that sounds like a big number that you may not be able to connect to. So I get it. Let me break it down. 7 in 10 graduates, and these are undergraduates, have student loans, which means next time you're out in public, just look around. And if there's 10 people around you, 7 of them have student debt. And this is not just the young people. This also includes their parents, because 7 in 10 average families or average parents borrow just like their kids do. And that number or the amount of money that people have to borrow is growing at $3,000 a second. So just imagine every single hour, student debt grows at close to $11 million per hour. That's an incredible amount of money. And if you consider that the average student will graduate college with $39,000 of debt, it's going to take them quite a long time to pay that off. Now, one thing I want to mention here as well, this is just how much we're borrowing from the government. There's a whole other industry, the private industry, where students are borrowing money from banks, from other institutions, and so are the parents. This number doesn't even include the parent loans, which end up being about the same. So, an average student who graduates with $39,000 of debt is going to have a pretty big payment when they graduate for years. So, here's a rule of thumb for all of you. If you're considering borrowing money to pay for college, remember this. After your kids graduate, they're going to have to repay about $100 a month for every $10,000 that they borrow over the next 10 years. Which means if an average student is going to borrow $40,000, their after college repayment will be about $400 a month for 10 years. So if you, as a parent, are also considering borrowing, and as I said earlier, most parents borrow about the same amount over the kids' 4 years of college, a family might very well have $80,000 of combined debt, which means your after college payment is going to be $800 a month for 10 or more years. That's not an insignificant amount of money, and it's forcing a lot of people to feel financial stress for years after their kids get out of college. And it doesn't have to be this way, but it happens to be this way because oftentimes parents will say something like this: "Hey, Sam or Mary, kid, if you can get in, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out a way to pay for it." This is a natural parental instinct because we all want what's best for our kids. And we're usually guided with a little bit of guilt, maybe for some more than others. We might feel guilty that we weren't able to save as much money to send our kids to college. And so we'll just bury our head in the sand, if you will. Don't take offense at this, please. I mean it with all due respect. But that's just what happens. We'll say, we'll figure it out. Just get into the college that's going to make you happy, that's going to make you successful, that's going to give you a head start in life. Or maybe we feel guilty that we weren't able to spend as much time with our kids to help them make all these big decisions because we're busy. We've got work, we've got family obligations, we've got stuff to do. That's normal. And so out of that guilt, we say, just find a school that's going to make you happy. We'll figure out a way to pay for it. Well, this happens every single year when kids are in their first semester of the senior year. They, apply to all these great colleges that they think will make them happy. Then come the fall, they get their acceptance letters and their parents get the bill. And usually they start wondering, like, crap, where's the money? That's a lot more than we can pay. I thought we were going to get, or I was hoping we were going to get some financial aid. So they start to panic, usually in the spring of their kid's senior year of high school, just before they have to commit to some college and write their deposit check. And they start looking for money. What they usually discover at that time is that financial aid works a bit like anything that you have to stand in line for. It's usually given out on a first come, first served basis. So unless the family and their kids have done all the things starting in the fall to get and line up all the right financial aid for them to get when they get accepted, that they'll find themselves at the back of the line with a lot of other people ahead of them. And by the time they get to the front of the line, there might not be enough money left for them to actually meaningfully reduce that amount that they'll have to pay out of pocket and bridge that big gap. So Unfortunately, that's what most families will experience because by the time they start looking for money in their kids' spring semester of the senior year, it's too late. There's just not enough time. And so what happens is they end up borrowing and overpaying for college. Now, I want to offer a little analogy. So, remember back in the day when we all used to travel carefree, worry free, and get on the airplanes with 400 other people? Well, the one thing that you may or may not have known is that the price difference between two identical seats can be as much as 8 times. Now, I'm not talking about the price difference between the first class and the last row in the economy seat next to the bathrooms. I'm talking about the same section and the price difference between identical seats right next to each other. Same exact boarding experience, same flight experience, same amount of room, same service, same time you get off the plane. Everything is the same, but the price difference can be 8 times between what you paid and somebody else. Well, you all know that the best way to save money on the price of an airplane ticket is, to start early, to give yourself some flexibility, right? So you do some research and you usually buy your tickets well in advance. You're flexible. Well, you know at the same time that if you show up at the counter on the day of the flight, well, you're not going to expect very much of a discount. You're probably paying not only the going rate, but you're paying a premium because you don't have that many options. Well, the same thing happens in college. If you consider that an average, classroom, whether it's 20 kids in the classroom or 200, they're literally sitting in the same class, learning from the same instructor, the same material, in the same room. There's really no difference about the seat in which they are going to sit in that classroom. Yet the price difference per seat can be just as dramatic as the airplane example. In fact, everybody sitting in that classroom is going to pay something different. So if you want your kids to pay less than everybody else, you can, because there are two different types of financial aid available to families. You just have to know which one is right for you and for your student. And then you pick colleges based upon that, because that is the number one thing that's going to determine how much you pay for college. I'll come back to this in just a moment. But I do want to tell you the two biggest financial aid buckets, because that's how you're going to make college more affordable. Number one, there's your traditional need based financial aid. Now, need based financial aid is determined by your family finances. That's what determines your financial need for assistance. So, when your kids begin their senior year of high school, starting October 1st, you should really be ready to complete the financial aid forms. FAFSA being the most common that everybody should be completing. That's when you will report your income, your savings, and the formula is going to figure out how much you should be able to pay for college. And then you compare that number to the cost of school, and whatever the gap is, that is your financial need. That's the amount of money that you would want colleges to pay for, to bridge, so you don't have to. And you only pay what you can out of your pocket, and you get the rest of your financial need met by the colleges that your kids are applying to. Now, I have some separate training where we talk about how to find different colleges that offer up to 100% of the money that you need. But just recognize that not every college is going to give you 100% of the money that you might need. So it's really important for you to find those colleges that will. Now, the second biggest amount of financial aid comes from merit based scholarships. This has nothing to do with your finances. It has everything to do and exclusively to do with your student's profile. Now, the whole notion of merit based financial aid is misleading because of that word merit, right? Because oftentimes parents will say, well, gosh, my student is great. They're a wonderful kid, but they're not that 4.0 or in these days 4.5, GPA student. They don't have perfect SATs or perfect ACTs. They're not valedictorian. They're not the star quarterback. They're not the head of the student body. They don't volunteer every waking hour. Will they really get any merit scholarships? Well, merit is a bit of a misleading word because a lot of colleges will use merit based financial aid as a catch all phrase, as simply a discounting mechanism where they're giving money to good fit students because every college is looking for a diverse incoming freshman class. And it's not just about their grades or about their test scores or about, their skills, athletic, artistic, or otherwise. Sometimes it's just to do with the fact that they recognize, the colleges recognize they're going to have to give some discount for kids to come to their school. And it's automatic, it's built in. Sometimes they're looking for more boys or girls. They're looking for more kids from the West Coast or the East Coast or the South or the Midwest, or they're looking for kids with different majors. They're all looking for a diverse class. And so don't think that merit has to only is available to those kids that are distinguished in some academic, athletic, or otherwise way. That's not the case. In fact, according to the National Association of College and University Business Officers, wow, that's a mouthful. But nonetheless, according to this nonprofit organization, an average tuition discount among 361 private colleges that were surveyed, they reached an all-time high of 54% discounts for first-time undergraduates last year. This means those colleges will give an average of discount of 54% to kids that apply and get accepted just because it's built into their strategy. So what you have to do is really take the time right now to figure out how to find these colleges. And what you look for is what I'm going to share with you next. But this applies to everybody who's got a college bound student. It doesn't matter if they're a freshman, a sophomore. You got to start looking at this because just like buying an airplane ticket, the earlier you start looking, the more options you're going to have, the better prepared you will be, and the less you're going to pay because you're going to find good deals. College is no different. But this is especially important for anyone with a high school junior right now because your kids are now looking at colleges. Everybody at their school is beginning to talk about colleges next year. They might be meeting with your high school college counselor. They might be meeting with their private college counselors. They may be attending college fairs, usually virtual at this time of year, but soon enough, they will start going on college campus tours. And if you don't get involved as the parent to help your kids look for the right things when they're selecting colleges, well, guess what? Chances are they might find colleges that are a great fit for them, but they're not a great fit for you as a family financially. So it's really important that you do this together. Don't just leave this up to your student. As well intentioned, as smart and thoughtful as they might be, they're still young. Well, they're not even young adults yet. Some of them might be, but they're teenagers. They're young people. They're not supposed to know everything yet. They have the life experience and the financial experience. That's okay. That's where you come in. So do it together. So, what do you look for? Number one, if you're a high need family, meaning maybe have lower income, lower assets, and if you look at that financial aid formula, and I've talked about it before, it's the cost of attendance. You look at the total cost of the school, you subtract from that the amount of money that you'll be expected to pay, right? That's your EFC. And if the difference between the cost of school and how much you're expected to pay is high, well, then you're a high need family. So you should look for colleges that will give you upwards of 100% of need based aid, because those are the colleges that will bridge the gap between the amount that you can pay for school and the amount that the school costs with financial aid. Now, if you are a no need family, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. You may have very high income. or you might have high amount of savings, but you might still need help paying for college. So what should you look for? Well, then you should look for colleges that have a lot of merit aid and outside scholarships. Remember, merit aid is just a discounting mechanism. So look for those colleges because if you do, and if you find that school that happens to be one of the schools mentioned in that survey that I shared with you earlier, then you can get an automatic 50% discount off of tuition. How cool would that be? And then look for outside scholarships. Now, what happens if you're right in the middle? You're what I call the some need family. You need some financial aid, right? Because the gap between the amount that you're going to be expected to pay and the amount that school costs is not going to be as high, right? Maybe the amount that you'll be expected to pay is more than you can comfortably pay. Our financial aid system is flawed enough. I talked about that in the past, and I'm not going to open up that can of worms today. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a middle class family, most likely you're going to be expected to pay more than you can. That's just because our financial aid system is a bit flawed, or the formula, I should say, is a bit flawed. But we can't change it right this moment. But that doesn't mean that you have to be one of those families who digs themselves deep into debt. You can still find money. It's just you have to do a little bit more work than a very high need family or the no need family because you're kind of stuck in the middle where you have to do a little bit of everything. You have to do a combination of looking for colleges that will give you all of the need based financial aid that you qualify for, plus will give you additional merit financial aid. Or will give you the automatic discounts because together, those two things will combine and amount to a much, much greater discount that the college is effectively going to give you to help bridge that gap between the amount that you can pay out of pocket and the total cost of school. Because at the end of the day, it's really not about the sticker price. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how much you're going to pay for the college out of your pocket. And that amount is determined entirely by the college fit that you find because you got to find colleges that will give you and your student, your unique situation, your unique student, the highest discount. And let colleges help you bridge that gap. Don't go to the government or to the banks and borrow to pay for that gap because at some point, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to pay it back. And even though your student's only going to be in college, for let's say 4 years, you may end up having to pay for college for 14 years, right? Because it's the 4 years of school plus 10 years on average of repaying those student loans. And a lot of families and a lot of your kids will extend that to 15 or 20 years. Why sign yourself up for that amount of hurt? Don't. Because the number one thing that you can do to lower the amount that you're going to ultimately pay for college is to look for colleges that will give you the greatest discounts based upon your unique family situation, based upon your kid's unique profile. And if you do this when your kids are juniors, which is right now for every junior family, as your kids are about to look for colleges, if you do this together as a family and find those really good fit colleges that'll be a great fit for them academically, experientially, where they can graduate in 4 years with a good degree to get started in life, that is a great fit for them and a great fit for you financially. A college that's going to give you the greatest discount. So it doesn't matter where the sticker price is. What matters is who's going to bridge the gap between their cost and the amount that you have available to pay for college. So look for those great fit colleges for your whole family. Let them bridge this gap so you don't have to dig deeper into your finances. You don't have to dig yourself into debt. Let them, let the colleges pay that difference. So, without further ado, I'm going to probably wrap this up. I don't want to hold you longer than I have to. I hope you found this to be helpful. And if you have any other questions or if you want to learn more and you this is the kind of stuff that helps you, go on our website. It's pillar6college.com. We've got a lot of great free resources that you can use, anything from learning about student loans and how to find the right ones. If you have to borrow, we've got a great little cheat sheet for you so you can actually get the better loans. If you're still earlier on in the process, we've got some really great free material that you can learn how to get more financial aid, how to find those colleges that give 100% of the money that you're going to need, how to find colleges with merit aid, and how to position yourself financially in the most financial aid friendly way. There's a lot of great information that you can use to continue learning. There's also a way for you to sign up for our mailing list, and we send almost daily emails with tips on how to save on that sticker price of college and make college ultimately more affordable. They're absolutely free, and we'll send you usually one tip every single day that you can use starting right now. And so, with that, I wish you all the very best. Good luck in your college planning journey. We'll talk to you all soon. Take it easy.